What's up, guys? It's Parallax Abstraction, and welcome to PXA Peeks at Earth Defense Force 4.1 WINGDIVER the Shooter. Yeah, I don't know what is weirder about this title, how freaking long it is, or the fact that it is stated in all caps. Just, wow, boy. But I tell you, if that isn't in keeping with the Earth Defense Force personality, I don't know what is. So, yes, Earth Defense Force is an interesting thing. It's a series of games that has been around since the PlayStation 2 era. I first discovered it in the Xbox 360 era. You ever have one of those B movies that's frankly so bad you can't help but love it? That's basically this series in video game form. They're not frankly incredibly good games by any objective merit. They often run like crap, they have horrible writing, horrible voice acting, terrible weapon balance. They can be cheesed fairly easily, but people love them because they're such good, goofy, dumb fun that you can't help but have a smile on your face while you're playing them. They also have a crazy amount of difficulty variants and weapon combinations which allow for insane replayability. I actually really like this series. The latest revision, which is Earth Defense Force 4.1 The Shadow of New Despair, I kid you not, is actually on PC and runs exceptionally well. It has been something I've been meaning to get back to with some friends. And this is a weird spin-off that the publisher D3 made. It's a shmup. And it is a shmup developed by an indie Japanese studio known as Clouds, who I've never heard of. This is their only listed game on Steam. And they basically took most of the core ideas of Earth Defense Force and made a shmup out of it. And it kind of works, honestly, in many ways, but it's also got some major shortcomings as well. So I put a good chunk of time into this so far, probably about 4 hours. And to give you a little bit of a primer on how the Earth Defense Force series works is that most of the games have a large number of missions in them. They have difficulty levels in them, and by playing higher difficulty levels, you get better loot. And that loot can be weapon drops, it can be additional armor, which is basically health points, which actually you retain permanently even after game overs, which is critical. And obviously, in this game, it can also lead to higher scores, because this is a shmup, so it is a score attack at the same time. So I'm going to start this. I have beaten the entire game on easy and normal, and most of the way through on hard. But I'm going to start on easy just so I can show you guys what this looks like here. So the idea is just that Earth has been invaded by massive bug aliens, and you are the EDF, which is the only place that can stop them.
Reach the target area. Thanks for taking on this urgent request, Pale Team. We need your help more than ever.
But Commander, Pale Team's equipment is still in the testing stages.
It has to enter the field at some point. This may be earlier than planned, but we'll show those Ravagers what a new aviation units can do.
Yeah. Hear this voice acting? Yeah, this is get used to it, because you get that throughout the entire frickin' game. The writing in this is straight out of not even B-movie, like C-movie schlock, and the voice acting matches it. And there is no way that they don't know exactly what they're doing, because the entire series has been like this and has stayed this way forever. You're either going to find it endearing or it's going to drive you nuts. I personally find it endearing. So you can see basically what we're doing here. You go through a shmup level through different environments. You're taking out a bunch of these creature things, and you will eventually fight a boss at the end, and then you move on to the next stage. And in the middle of a lot of these missions, they have a thing that they call shoot 'em up time, and it's basically a time challenge. You have to kill as many of these rapid fire enemies as you can within the time limit, and for hitting certain milestones, you get bonuses, which in this case is a small health power-up, a big health power-up, and an extra weapon. And you can see here, and you have to take out as many as you can. You also get bonus points for however many you take out. So the more you manage, the more score you get. You can also see in the upper left there, we've got a combo meter that the more kills you get in a row, the higher that meter gets, and the higher amount of points you will get per shot. Pretty standard stuff as shmups go. Tried and true formula, you know? Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. You also see these little boxes that are dropping. So the red ones are armor, which is basically health, which you can see on the left there. And the green ones are weapons. If you fail a mission, you don't get to keep the weapons, but you do get to keep the armor. And that is key, because you're never going to beat this game on the higher difficulties out of the gate unless you are a shmup savant. There is no doubt about that whatsoever. So getting those armor build-ups is definitely very important. Now, the thing with the weapon pickups is that the other thing that people love about EDF is that they have a ridiculous selection of weapons of varying degrees of craziness. Now, the problem is that weapon balance is just kind of a roll of the dice. Tons of the weapons are objectively vastly superior to other ones. And that is kind of the case here. Some weapons all the weapons have very different firing methods. Some are slow and powerful, some are quick and not so powerful. Some, like this gun I have here, which I picked up a while back, are frankly very quick and very powerful, and to a certain degree are kind of a win button. Yeah. So,
This is WINGDIVER 9.
listen to this.
Requesting urgent support. We've been caught in an enemy trap. I can't move. Somebody help me.
Like,
Huh? What's that giant insect? Ah! Help me!
thankfully, most of these cutscenes you can skip, but yeah. So I'm using two weapons right now. You have two different weapons in the game that you can cycle between, and you can choose them in between each mission. So one of them is this sort of target lock thing, which is extremely powerful, and the other is this gun that shoots in a weird V pattern, but is also very powerful. You also have... Now, I'm playing with a controller. You can play with a keyboard, but I highly recommend a controller for this game. In addition to being able to switch your weapons on the fly, you can press a button to do sort of a quick dodge like that. And that quick dodge gives you a few iframes. So especially on the higher difficulties, when the enemies have some really, really gnarly bullet patterns, that's going to be absolutely critical. Now, I obviously blew through that because I have very high-end weapons and I'm playing on easy. So don't take that as read. You know, even starting out when I didn't have a lot of weapons in this game was pretty rough. Now, you also saw that I picked up a bunch of different weapons during the game. Well, here's the only thing, though. You are not guaranteed to not have drops, or to not have duplicate drops, I should say. So these weapons here that are listed as new, these are weapons I have picked up in previous missions that I have not actually tried out yet. You can see here that it looks like there's quite a few left to pick up. And that's the thing, there are a ton of weapons in EDF games. Some of them are variations on a theme, some of them are very different from each other. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually change out my second weapon for this rapier thrust, which is a weapon that is exceptionally powerful, as you can tell by its weapon level there, but doesn't have a big area of effect. You can also do some basic customization on your character's color, which is kind of cool. So yeah, you will tend to, once you get to a certain point, you'll tend to only get newer, higher-end weapons on the lower difficulties if you're lucky. You really have to play and indeed grind the higher levels in order to get the top-shelf gear. And that's the thing, this is a game that is intended to be played just like the original EDF titles. This is a game that is intended to be played over and over and over again to get higher scores and better loot, which will lead to even higher scores and even better loot, and eventually you will max it out, and then you will be focusing exclusively on high score. Now, this is a good thing in my opinion, because it does give you, so you see, here's that crazy powerful weapon that has the low range. So low range, but it wrecks fools. Now, there's the other thing. See that energy level on the right? Yeah. The higher the level of the weapon, the more energy it takes. Now, your primary weapon, typically if you have it set as a rapid fire gun like this, it will never take enough energy to actually deplete your energy. You will always run at a surplus. But as you can see there, when I use the powerful weapon, you can run it out. You will get an audible warning, so you can switch in time. But if you don't, you will overheat, and you will have to wait several seconds before being able to fire again, and your movement speed is halved. Really not brilliant, especially on the high-end difficulty. So you actually do, if you want to use the best, most powerful gear, you got to be careful and actually manage your weapon energy effectively. thankfully, and you also have to be careful there when you want to use your boost as well, because as you can see, if you look at the meter, when I'm boosting, that takes a chunk of energy too. So on the higher difficulties with the higher end weapons, you see I burned out there. So that's the difficulty with this weapon. It's incredibly powerful, but it destroys energy. And as far as I know, there are no upgrades for the energy capacity. So again, you got to be real careful with that stuff. And yeah, that is, so there will be a lot of sort of management and juggling of that later on. And yeah, some of these weapons can be very, very challenging to use, and that can be interesting in terms of wanting to create additional challenge for yourself. But at the same time, some of the weapons, again, just like the rest of the EDF series, some of the weapons feel, frankly, just objectively worse to me. Like some weapons where you're like, I cannot see a situation in which this would make sense to use. Like why I would ever want to do this. And that's kind of unfortunate. It's kind of a bummer that there are so many weapons and that you potentially have to work very hard to earn them all. And that some of them are just objectively bad to the point where you're not going to want to use them. But again, that's in keeping with Earth Defense Force. And honestly, if you're playing this game, you probably are doing it because you're an Earth Defense Force fan. If you are just a Shmup fan... Oh, I just hit 400. Nice. If you are just a Shmup fan, don't get me wrong, there's a lot to get out of this as well. I mean, it's certainly no looker, but neither was the rest of the EDF series. But there still is good Shmup play here, and especially on the higher end difficulties, there's some really tricky and quite actually very nice bullet patterns that you can have to dodge through as well. But it has some very big limitations as well against the EDF series. Like, for example, there is no co-op in this. You know, two-player shmups, pretty commonplace, but there is none of that in this. And even though co-op was a big focus of the original EDF games, and frankly, the de facto way to play them, really kind of weird to me that they chose to leave that out. I'm really not sure why they chose to do that. But, I mean, this is a fine single-player experience, but just, you know, a lot of shmups are more fun in two-player, and obviously that was a focus of EDF, so I kind of find that a little odd. And one real big limitation that's going to really surprise EDF players, because it certainly surprised me, there's only 6 levels in this game. Previous games in the standard EDF series had as many as 30 or more. And some of them were very long. Like, some of them could take an hour or more, depending on the difficulty you were playing. None of these levels, for a successful run through them, take more than a few minutes apiece. You can beat this whole game in under 20 minutes if you're good at it. And especially if you skip all the cutscenes, which you will want to do after having seen them once probably at most. And that kind of shocked me. But at the same time, I thought about it and went, yeah, but it's a shmup, and most shmups don't have a ton of levels. Now, I have played a lot of indie shmups that have a similar number of levels, but they're quite a bit longer. I've also played indie shmups that have just more levels in general, and this does feel a little content light, but it's also only $20. This isn't a full price game. You know, a lot of Japanese shmups on the PC are frankly very expensive, even the ones that are somewhat lacking in content. Very much not the case here. I think $20 is a much more reasonable price, but if you want the hours and hours and hours that you would get of variable environments and variable enemy types that you would get out of an EDF game, you're really not going to find that here. There's hours and hours of replayability, don't get me wrong, especially if you want to max your score and get best leaderboard position, and if you want to actually complete the game on hard. But that said, maybe I've gotten lucky with the weapon drops, but I'm under 4 hours total time in this game, and I am 2 levels away from beating it on hard. And after that point, other than just trying to be able to do it in 1 credit to get the best score, that's kind of it. You know, that's where you hit the wall and you're kind of done, right? The one nice thing about this is there is online leaderboards, and they're fairly diverse. You can do a total score leaderboard, which only counts, I believe, if you complete the game on a run. But you can do them on each level and on each difficulty, so you can do... The problem is it doesn't always seem to work for me. Like, I'm asking... There it is. So I asked for a top 100 on this one, and there it is. I got it. Sometimes you have to ask it to do it multiple times. The my ranking thing also doesn't seem to work, which really frustrates me. I am definitely not in the top 10, but when I select my ranking, that's what it shows me. And you can scroll down it, of course, but again, it doesn't show me. I don't know why that's there, why they haven't fixed that, I don't know. But here, you can sort of cheese it by going, show me the friends list. I have no friends who are playing this, but you can see there's my score and there is my rank, and that is for easy on the urgent dispatch mission. So let's see if we go here. I'm actually 21 on normal, which is not so bad. So there you go. See, it shows up, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, which is kind of frustrating. Of course, some of the top scores are held by some absolutely shmup savants. I mean, hey, as they should be, perfectly fair. And yeah, so you want to work towards that, but yeah, that's kind of the problem, is that it's a good shmup. I've actually had a lot of fun with it, and I'm going to keep playing it, but it has everything that's good and bad about EDF. It has the horrible writing, it has the horrible voice acting, but it does have the solid, fun gameplay. But you're going to have to grind a lot to get weapons because it's completely random sometimes what you get. And there's just not a lot of variety. It's only, you know, like I said, it's only 6 levels. So here, let's try yeah, so this mission I haven't beaten on hard. I got to the final boss. So there are 3 checkpoints that you can choose to start from, but keep in mind if you're competing for score that your score starts at 0. So if you want to start at a later mission or start at a later point in a later mission, you can pretty much kiss your good leaderboard position goodbye. If you're competing for leaderboards, you really want to go to the absolute start of whatever difficulty you want. So we'll go to the middle point of this one just so I can show you what it looks like. You know, it runs well. It runs, it's got decent options. It runs at 60 frames a second on my machine, no problem. The load times are super, super quick. You know, I mean, these games are notorious for how horrible they run on consoles, and they also had decent load times. And I mean, no kidding, Earth Defense Force, I believe it was 2077 on the Xbox 360, could get into the single-digit frame rates during big battles sometimes. It was ridiculous. And it's nice to see that this runs very well. Earth Defense Force 4.1 on the PC apparently runs quite well too, so it's nice to see that they put some effort into that. And yeah, I mean, for a first-time studio, which Cloud seems to be, I'd say this is quality piece for the most part. You know, they did a pretty decent job with it. I wish it had more levels. I wish it had 2-player support. I wish the leaderboards were a little bit more reliable. And I do wish that, though it does maintain the EDF weapon variety and the grindability, which I think if you want to make a true, you know, EDF, a game in the EDF lineage, you need those things. But I do still wish that there was a little bit better balance in the weapons. I do wish that there were some weapons that were not objectively worse and are really just designed for people who purposely want to make the game harder on themselves. Maybe that's by design. You know, there are a lot of shmup players out there who like to be able to say, hey, I did this with the worst weapon, you know, without getting hit, or I got this crazy score with that. You know, there's bragging rights within the community for that kind of thing, and maybe that's what they were going for, but really it's not what I'm looking for, to be honest with you. So here's the boss of this level. Yeah, I got completely destroyed here playing this on hard, and I'm sure I still will here. Oh yeah. And as you can see, the bullets get very hellish on the higher difficulties. Oh yeah, you better be prepared to grind out some permanent armor power-ups there. That said, if you put in enough time to do that, you can grind out enough armor that you could probably just cheese your way through just about any level you want. You know, and that is a darn it. Oh, I might have hosed myself here. Okay. And, you know, as bad as the voice acting and writing is, you know, like I said, some people are going to find it cringe-tastic and it's going to drive them nuts. I think it's bloody hilarious. I actually really enjoy it. I got wrecked. Oh, well. So, but you get the point here. So, is this a quality shmup? Yeah. Could it have been better? Yeah, I think so as well. Is it worth the $20 price, $20 US price tag? For me personally, as a shmup enthusiast and an Earth Defense Force enthusiast, I would say absolutely. Your mileage may vary, you may want to wait for a sale a little bit, but I think if you are into shmups and EDF, this is a great thing for you to have. If you're only into shmups, probably still a pretty good thing to have. If you're only into the mainline EDF series and don't really care for shmups, I don't think this is going to sell you on them. That's basically my verdict on that. But I've enjoyed it, and I'm glad I have it. So that is Earth Defense Force 4.1 WINGDIVER the Shooter, developed by Clouds and published by D3 Publisher in 2018. It is on the PC on Steam for $20 US. Like I said, if you like shmups, I think you'll be fine with it. If you like EDF and shmups, I think you'll be fine too. If you're just into EDF, maybe not so much. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you liked what you saw here, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. That does help me out a great deal. I also do live streams over on Mixer at mixer.com/pxabstraction, and don't forget to follow @pxabstraction on Twitter to find out about new stuff first.